Welcome to another episode of the Relief Podcast. Today, our guest, Frank McKinney, a rock star in real estate circles, an artist who's not only designed but envisioned and created over 44 oceanfront mansions. And, and here's other people's words about him. The Wall Street Journal said, Frank McKinney has always liked to live on the edge, and he likes to live dangerously. And then President Trump had some really awesome words about you as well in one of your books. Um, Frank, thank you for being on the show. I'd like to first ask you, how does how does faith drive your work?
Very interesting opening question. Um, so I am a Christian, and there's a saying that goes around the Christian community that says, "I'm just a sinner saved by the grace of God," and I don't go by that. We are all saints who are saved by the grace of God who still sin. So you're a saint, I'm a saint. We're all saved by the grace of God, and yet we still sin. One of my 8 books was a Christian romance novel titled The Other Thief that was based on the passage from the Gospel of Luke. I won't bore you with the long passage, but it was basically the crucifixion of Christ and how at the last minute, at the 11th hour and 59th minute, Christ offered grace, mercy, love, forgiveness, and redemption to the thief on his right while the other thief mocked him. So I am, listen, I was born in Indiana. I'm a corn-fed country boy. I'm the oldest of 6. I was raised on a farm. I was in juvenile detention 7 times before I was 18. I went to 4 high schools in 4 years and came out of that 4th high school with a 1.8 GPA. So people ask me, Frank, have you always had your faith? And my answer is yes, but sometimes I forgot how to practice it.
Wow, I mean, it's like that story of the mustard seed, right? It's so little, and when you went to Florida, you went with so little in your pocket, but this drive and inspiration to succeed.
I believe that everyone listening or watching today has a professional highest calling. I define that as a gift from God that allows you to put food on the table, money in the bank, clothes in your closet, cars in your garage. It's a gift that God gave you that allows you to do something a little bit better than most people. Not better than everybody, but a little bit better than most. And in my case, with that kind of GPA and no hope of pursuing a formal education, the gift that he gave me was the design, building, creation, and ultimately selling of these 44 spec homes that you reference. I'm not a custom builder. I only, like Van Gogh or Renoir or Monet, I only build on speculation. I don't paint. I create 3-dimensional art that you can live in. And so, with that professional highest calling, I also realized at a very low point in my life, and we'll get to the details later, that there is such a thing as a spiritual highest calling. And so to be able to dovetail your professional highest calling with your spiritual highest calling, yes, we've built 44 direct oceanfront homes with an average selling price of $14 million. But as of the airing of your program, we have built 31 self-sustaining villages in Haiti in the last 21 years, providing a self-sufficient existence to over 14,000 children that were eating mud patties, dirt flavored with bouillon and lemon juice. So professional highest calling is this gift to build these beautiful houses on the ocean on spec. But I learned a long time ago that I didn't need cars in my garage or more clothes in my closet or food in my pantry. I needed to share the blessings I had been given via my professional highest calling to serve my spiritual highest calling. So to make it real simple, as a guy with a 1.8 GPA, I'm a very simple thinker. I'm a simpleton. I'm a linear thinker. I build the big ones on the ocean here in Palm Beach so we can build a bunch of little houses in Haiti for those who have no shelter.
So that definitely feeds your why.
Yeah. I didn't. So let me get this one thing really straight. When I was 18, I came to Florida with a $50 bill. And all the way into my mid-30s, I was a consumerist. I was an egotist. I was a materialist. And then I realized that the energy that we put into the pursuit of material things, fancy cars and clothes and houses and whatever, never returns to favor. That energy is never returned to you from which you use to pursue the things. So when I was ready to leap to my death off a bridge or put a gun in my mouth or put a handful of pills in my mouth, I was so depressed because I had reached the pinnacle of professional success. Demetri, I had sold the most expensive spec house in the history of Palm Beach County back in the early 2000s. Yet I had lost all the heart in my soul, all the soul in my heart because of the consumerism and the materialism and the egotism. I went to my mentor and I asked him, his name is Rich DeVos. He's passed now. He's the co-founder of Amway. At the time, he was the 65th richest person in the world. And he was a mentor of mine for 20 years. And I asked him, I said, Rich, why do I feel, I don't curse, but I'm going to say one bad word this whole podcast. Why do I feel like shit? I should be on top of the world. I come from nothing. I'm selling this beautiful, most expensive spec house in the history of Palm Beach County. Why do I feel so terrible? And he's the one who introduced me to the concept of professional highest calling, spiritual highest calling. Once I found my spiritual highest calling, Demetri, it fed the growth of my professional highest calling. It gave purpose to the passion.
Wow. And that's kind of where I'm aspiring to be in my own. My brand behind the Relief podcast is Real Estate Relief. So meaning I want to buy your property, but I'm nice about it. I follow core values. So I entered this kind of business reluctantly because not only did I want to get better deals, but I wanted to be that compassionate ear to people. In a time where, like I said, there's a lot of fear out there. And sometimes people have gone in over their heads. Like, talk about a time where you put it all on the line and it worked out great.
Well, let me tell you my concept. And this is in my book, Aspire, How to Create Your Own Reality and Alter Your DNA. Great book, long book, but it's a great book. 25 chapters, 5 sections. In the first section, actually, I need to jump to the second section to answer your question. We'll go back to the first one later. Fear is almost always associated with the thought of taking a risk, not with the actual taking of the risk. I'm going to give you an example. You get onto a roller coaster. You get out of line. It's your turn to get on the roller coaster. You sit down in the roller coaster car, and that big metal bar comes over your waist. Your heart starts pounding much quicker than it was while you were standing in line, being pulled by that chain. Clickety clack, click, till it gets close to the top. Your heart's about ready to burst out of your chest at the thought of what is about to happen. Nothing's happened yet, Demetri. You're safe. You're sound. You're sitting in the car. You haven't even gone over the hill yet. You're terrified. Fear is a result of the thought of taking a risk. And taking a risk is almost always associated with a big change or challenge in our life. Could be physical, change or challenge, financial, relational, spiritual, dietary, on and on. Big change or challenge. What I learned to this day, so yes, 44 spec houses with an average selling price of $14 million. The most expensive one we ever did was $50 million. I'm still afraid every single day of my life. I realize now that the fear that I feel is associated with the thought of taking the risk. The fear goes away when you take the risk. Now, this is going to likely air after the big reveal of my Leap Day endeavor. Go to my YouTube channel and watch how I revealed this new endeavor. I talk about having to get over a fear of something I hadn't done in like 15 years. So I know I'm being vague there because I'm not quite sure.
No, you know what? I've seen the video. I love it. Like I have a question about it too. So you've worked oceanfront for years, right? And now you change your landscape, right, as an artist to a new place.
The video you're referring to is something that's out now. I'm referring to something that is, as of the date of our recording, is not out yet. It comes out on Leap Day. So the video you're referring to is the movie we made about Escape to Pigeon River, I assume, which is this.
So,
Yeah,
okay, so it's the
yeah.
different category.
The new one's not even out yet, but you got to go see the new one. As of Leap Day, which is February 29th, it'll be out.
I'll make sure I get this published before your launch, so we can talk about it and maybe even promote it.
Okay.
Because I love how you talk about, like, first it's like the tease, right, to anticipate a new release, right, and I really admire the production value that you put in your videos, right. It truly stands out because in a time of commodities, you live on the edge, literally on the edge, right, where the water is.
Yeah.
And what I wanted to ask is, like, what is it like to have the water as your backdrop as an artist?
So let's save that for a second because you brought up something I think your viewers will really need to hear, and that is you just said you just used the word what you're trying to do with yourself with the branding of the Relief podcast
Yeah.
in real estate, and going back to my Aspire book, and this is in the third section. Personal branding is the art of amplifying your essence, Demetri, to the point where it subliminally intoxicates your customer, either current or future, to the point of intoxication. They become so enamored with you that they must buy your product or service. Personal branding is the art of amplifying your essence to the point where your customers, either current or future, become subliminally intoxicated with you first, then your product or service. You are not Apple Computer. You are not Coca-Cola. You are not Nike. You are Demetri. I am Frank. What I build, 50,000 people out of a worldwide population of 8 billion can afford. So when you see some of the theatrical unveilings that we put together or the trailers that we put together for our real estate projects, I'm the opening act, Demetri. I don't come with the house. I just need to be the carnival barker, the ringmaster, the P.T. Barnum, and then get out of the way and let the substance do the talking. So yes, I've got a lot of flash, but I'll tell you what, I wouldn't be around for 35 years in this business if all I was flash and sizzle. I flash for an instant, and then I get out of the way and let the product, in this case, either my books or the real estate, speak and be the front man, be the headliner. I'm just the opening act. So I just want to make sure I made that point about personal branding, that you need to amplify your essence to the point where your customers, current or future, become subliminally intoxicated with Demetri first, then your product or service. That's how you become memorable. Think about Van Gogh, Renoir, Monet, right? They become household names, people lining up to buy their paintings. I want Frank McKinney to be a household name when it comes to high-end real estate, so they're lining up to buy mine. I don't come with a house. You can hate the hair. You can hate the clothes. Don't worry about it. I don't come with a house. The house is what you're buying. So I'll stop there, and then you can re-ask your other question.
Well, that's beautiful, and that speaks to being bold, right? And I think that's something that a lot of people lack today, is to be strong in themselves and march forward however they can.
You know what? Try this. If you're having trouble with being with self-confidence and being bold, I'm an inherently very shy, very timid. I'm a recluse when it comes to certain things, but I live my inside on my outside. Everybody listening to this has an inside that they suppress. Either something happened in childhood, or as you got a little older, that you had to feel like you had to comply or conform. There's no conformity that's worth you selling your soul for. So live that inside on the outside. Use it to enhance your brand. Oh, that's that guy with the purple hair, the long hair, and he dresses a little bit odd. But oh my God, you got to see his house. Then it worked.
I love it, and that's why I put more product in my hair today to tease it out, and I didn't realize it'd be covered with the headphones. Next time I'll go wireless. So, and I wear my flashy, Miami style shirt. So
good for you. You look great. You look very handsome.
Thanks, brother. So I started digging into your book, and I'm inspired by your your how you're moved by Alan Watts. And like to me, there's been times in my life where I just, you know, seek solace in different advice, right? Personal development, a story here, a story there. It kind of lifts you out of the valley. And then there's this one quote that I just wanted to share with the audience is we're talking about fear from Alan Watts. To have faith is to trust yourself to the water. When you swim, you don't grab hold of the water because if you do, you will sink and drown. Instead, you will relax and float. And that goes to what you shared earlier. And I'm really inspired by that. That you're living that taking that inner reality and exhibiting it out, even if, like I said, we might be timid in that step.
Well, here's why sometimes we're timid. There's a lot of reasons we're timid, but one of the reasons is we need to develop what I call a healthy ego. So if I just said we need to develop a healthy self-esteem, everybody would perk up. But I said the ego word. Immediately, that's a negative connotation. Why is ego seen as a negative? Let me tell you what a healthy ego is. It's three things, three very simple things. Having one more time, having an otherworldly, burning passion for your purpose. One, okay, check that box, Frank. I have an otherworldly, burning passion for my purpose. Two, believing that you're one of the best in the world at what you do. Not the best, because that's unhealthy ego. Believing that you're one of the best in the world at what you do. I'm one of the best at building spec houses on the ocean, but I know I'm not the best. And three, not being afraid to tell the world about it. Otherworldly, burning passion for your purpose, not being afraid to tell the world about it, and believing, not in that order, and believing you're one of the best in the world at it. If you can check those three boxes, you have a healthy ego. If you can't, work on it. Because listen, there's nothing worse than charisma. Charisma is like going to a fireworks show, and when it's over, you're not going to keep staring at the sky, right? You're going home. But there's a chapter in my Aspire book called Magnetic-ism. Magnetic-ism. How to draw people to yourself. It could be romantically, it could be through spiritually, it could be in business. You possess a certain wonder that people want to be around you, not because you're charismatic. It's because you have this certain magnetic-ism that draws people to you. And ultimately, in my case, I want them to be drawn to one of three things. Well, one of two things that ultimately benefit the third. My real estate, my 9 books, that benefit the 31 villages that we've built in Haiti. It's a very simple formula. It's at 1.8 GPA. I'm not very bright. I connect the real estate to the books, and both of those, when they sell, benefit the Caring House Project in Haiti.
That's beautiful because, these are like the forgotten people of the world. And, as much as you bring attention to these projects, bringing attention to the charity is glorifies the talents that you've been given from up high. And so it's a beautiful circle. And now going into the book Aspire, would you like to share about the 3 I's and how that kind of, works into people's lives?
The insurmountable, incomprehensible, and impossible?
Exactly.
Yeah. So this is a very important lesson. I'm going to use a metaphor that you can insert your own. So I, as a hobby, I run ultra marathons, which are races that are typically 100 miles long or longer. And I've run the toughest foot race in the world according to National Geographic. It's not my claim. National Geographic has referenced the Badwater 135-mile ultra marathon as the toughest foot race in the world. It's 135 miles through the Death Valley Desert in July, where the ambient daytime temperatures are 125 to 130 degrees. The temperature on the pavement's over 200 degrees, and you're running 135 miles nonstop over and down, up and down 3 mountain ranges. You start at 282 feet below sea level, and you finish at over 9,000 feet above after going up and down. So if I were to say to you, I'm going to say to you, can you imagine running 135 continuous miles on 200-degree blacktop pavement in 125-degree temperature where the humidity's sometimes 2% or lower? Continue. Can you imagine? That is insurmountable. incomprehensible, and impossible. I I was when I heard about this sport of ultramarathoning 20 years ago, I was like one step away from the couch as a couch potato. I mean, I was a fast twitch muscle guy as a young person. I was a tennis pro, but 135 miles, even in the best conditions, I couldn't even imagine. In life, when the insurmountable, incomprehensible, and the impossible lay themselves on your heart, it doesn't have to be a running race in the desert. It could be starting a new business. It could be asking that girl out on a date. It could be starting to go vegan or something. It could be, saving enough money to go to college. I don't care what it is, but you have the three I's in your life. Something is insurmountable, incomprehensible, and impossible. Well, guess what? That race has been around since 1987. I stumbled across it in 2004, meaning other people, other human beings with flesh and bones and tendons and blood and all that kind of, had finished that race. Why not me? Say yes more than no to opportunities in life and see what happens. Now, they may not all work out because, Demetri, as you read in Aspire, I've run that race 12 times. I've failed to finish it 5, but I have finished it 7. When you consider or when you contemplate taking on one of the three I's in your life, something that's insurmountable, incomprehensible, and impossible, keep this in mind. You're going to have regrets in life. Oh, you will. Regret what you did, not what you didn't do. Don't sit on that chair, in your front porch when you're 85, rocking back and forth, wishing that you would have pursued that race in the desert 30 years ago. I wish I would have done that. It's too late now. No. I want to regret the fact that there was a time when I thought about building a spec house. It was 9 figures. That's over $100 million. It didn't happen. And yet I tried. I regret we wasted a lot of money and doing all that. But hey, listen, I'm going to regret things I said yes to. I'm never going to regret something I said no to.
No, I think that was there's a song from the Chili Peppers called Deep Kick, and the closing line, they're quoting the Butthole Surfers, and they said it's better to regret something you did than something you didn't do. So
never heard that. I love the Chili Peppers. Never heard that line, but it's something that life goes fast, and you're going to be on that front porch in your rocking chair sooner than you know it, if you're fortunate. And I just, listen, I don't want to regret. I help people just say yes to the three I's. Whatever your three, it could be starting the Tupperware club in your neighborhood and inviting 5 people over for dinner. Whatever your insurmountable, incomprehensible, and impossible is, identify it. That's the first thing you got to do, is identify it, and then exercise your risk tolerance like a muscle. Eventually it becomes stronger and is able to withstand greater pressure. Saying yes more than no, that will build that risk tolerance. And that's how we can start to put a couple of those three I's into our little front pocket as something that we accomplished rather than wish we'd started.
Oh, that's magnificent and valuable lesson. I recommend people re-listen to that segment because it's so deep. I'm like trembling. So back to my earlier question, designing by the water. I think a lot of artists, builders, I think they aspire to have maybe one project, that's a statement piece in their career, and you have like 44 of them. So when you have the water as your backdrop, as an artist, kind of, in the liking of Michelangelo, who studies things to maniacal details, how do you kind of take the landscape behind you and incorporate it into the work you build?
Okay, so I always kind of circumvent your question, but I will get there. I'm going to get there right now.
Oh, good.
The Wall Street Journal many years ago called me a real estate artist. Behind all of the artistry is a businessman. I am not going to be a starving artist. I could care less about accolades as far as beauty. I'm there to sell these properties, or else I'm eating out of a dumpster instead of Ruth Chris Steakhouse. So the driving force, and this is a challenge I want to put to every one of your listeners and viewers. You've been taught your entire life that you're either right brain or left brain. Right brain being really creative, left brain being statistical and analytical. I was statistical and analytical because my dad was a banker, my grandfather was a banker. I had the number side down, and I was told I was never a creative. And it bothered me. It took me 10 years, Demetri, to wake up the right side of my brain. Now, the people that I look up to, Demetri, toggle back and forth between right brain and left brain in nanoseconds. Like him or not, Elon Musk is a perfect example. He says, I want to send a SpaceX rocket up into space and deliver some payload, but yet I want to drop that SpaceX rocket right onto the platform it took off from. That's right brain, left brain in nanoseconds. Boom, 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 boom. So when it comes to building on the ocean front, the businessman, it always starts on the left side. If you're trying to make money, it's got to start on the left side. There are 152 direct, or ish, close to 152 direct oceanfront properties in Palm Beach County. If you have the money and you want to live on the water, south of France, Italian Riviera, Malibu, Beverly Hills, Bel Air, Palm Beach. So I'm competing with a very small number of people, or competing for a very small number of people that want to live on the ocean in Palm Beach. So the law of supply and demand says, Frank, you're going to do well if you can corner a small piece of the market of direct oceanfront property. So once that left side's satisfied and the margins are there, our margins are very healthy margins. And I'm happy to share my formula on the margins in a second. Then comes the artistry, because the ultra wealthy want to know they're living in something that has never been created before. I've had to destroy construction plans after the houses were done as part of the contract so that the owner knew this would never be built again. So having the luxury of living on the oceanfront in Palm Beach County is extremely desirable from the ultra wealthy's perspective from around the world. There's only a few places in a temperate climate like Palm Beach that you could live on the ocean. So when we're designing a house, for example, one of the last houses I did, we imported lava countertops from France that were over 14,000 years old that were as blue as you would find on a fishing boat about 3 miles offshore. If you've ever been offshore on like a cruise ship or something in the Caribbean, it's that azure blue, like gin clear water. So we bring a lot of the elements from the outside that you would see in the ocean into the houses. One of the last houses I did had 110 linear feet of almost unobstructed glass. I had one column that supported over 110 feet. It's called post-tension construction. So I could span that far and not take away from the view by having a bunch of support columns out there. So yes, you need to spend time on the left brain. Does this make business sense? I've seen too many starving artists in real estate even that have gone too far when it comes to over-improving or overpaying for the opportunity. My formula is really simple. Acquisition basis, what it costs to buy the underlying opportunity, plus improvement basis, what it costs to improve upon that underlying commodity, let's say a piece of vacant land to build on it, or a house that I have to renovate. Acquisition basis plus improvement basis shouldn't equal more than 65%, give or take a few percent. So you can see my margins, they're not really 35%. After negotiation, after maybe over improving a little bit, after carrying costs, I might be making 20 to 25% per house. You see that margin starts to thin. But I'm always going into it looking for that 35% return. That's the left brain. And then the right brain, man, you got to build a private resort. You're building a private resort for a family of one family instead of a bunch of people. And that's where you got to know where to take your risks in what I call the money rooms. The kitchen, the master bedroom, the master bathroom. By the way, kitchen, master bedroom, master bathroom, if I ask you the gender of those three rooms, it's a female gender. That is a female room. And then one masculine room, be it the study, be it the theater, be it the AV room or what have you. You get those, you take chances in those rooms, like big chances. You will be handsomely rewarded. Because the thing is, last point, when an ultra wealthy person walks into one of my houses, I would never sell on a comment made such as the husband looking at the wife or the wife looking at the husband and saying, that was kind of nice. That was okay, honey, right? No, You either love what I did or you hate it. What in the world was he thinking? Let's go to the other house. Or, oh my God, it's Tuesday, honey. I want to be sleeping in that house on Friday night. That's how it goes. That's how it's gone a lot. I've been insulted for some of my choices, but I've also had many people walk through the doors on a Tuesday and be sleeping there on a Friday.
So you know that I guess you're taking from like what you have like in a Frank Lloyd Wright, where you have like style, but it's not practical. Like your homes are built to last, right? Because you're in sometimes storm areas, and you have to shore up your foundations just like we do our mindset, and you're building these unique statement pieces which will connect to the right person. Who like I
You know
said, I
what,
love that.
Demetri? You're
You're
so
building.
you're right. I don't spend enough time talking. What you don't see that's under the ground, like a typical house will have 200 pilings that are driven 35 feet down in the coral rock shelf. I have reinforced poured concrete walls with steel rebar, not in block, reinforced concrete walls. So in South Palm Beach, in the town I built my last house in, when a hurricane was coming, the mayor called me and asked if they could move their operations from town hall to my house because it was a bomb shelter, a hurricane shelter, a vault, all in one, right on the beach. The glass I use in my houses is rated to 180 miles an hour, which is 30 miles past Category 5 hurricane.
They'd have to create a new category.
I hope they don't.
No. But you're like I said, you create like a bulletproof mindset and a bulletproof house that becomes a sanctuary for the town and an inspiration to others. I'm really moved by that. Like, what would you say is like you? So you study your clients, right? What would you say is the separator for that successful person who can afford your statement pieces?
There's a number of them, but there's one that comes to the top. And one of the most enjoyable things about what I've done for the past almost 30 years is learn the mindset of the ultra wealthy buyer. Demetri, not everybody walks through my house buys it, right? There's a lot of people that choose not to buy it, and I want to learn from them. Why not? What do I need to do better? Even the people who have bought my house, I'll go back a year later and say, what could I have done better? Teach me what you don't like and what I did. The overriding characteristic of the ultra wealthy is they are rapid fire decision makers. How many people watching or listening ponder over Google, over spreadsheet, overthink, get advice from everybody plus Uncle Tom before they make a move? Okay, so the ultra wealthy don't do that. They will, like I said, they'll walk in the door. Believe it or not, they'll walk in the door of a $15 million house on a Tuesday and be sleeping there on Friday. Who does that? Well, I try to act more like that. I don't take a lot of time to make a decision. But when you raised your hand, and a bunch of other people probably raised their hand too when it comes to making decisions, here's what's happening in the subconscious of your mind. So whenever you're faced with a big life-enhancing, life-changing decision, you're going to Google it, AI it, spreadsheet it, ask for advice, ask friends and neighbors, ask relatives. The more you Google, the more you AI, the more people you ask, the more you spreadsheet, you know what you're doing? You know what your subconscious is doing? It's trying to find a way to say no. If you ask enough people, if you Google enough sources, your subconscious will be reinforced with the no you're seeking, and you will bail on whatever it is you're looking to do. See, my brother told me not to do that, and he was right. Google says I'll lose money in real estate because it's cyclical, and every 6 years a cycle comes. I'm not doing it. You've just reinforced a subconscious search mission to find no. Once you're aware of that, I mean, that happens to me too. Once you're aware of that, you don't over Google, over ponder, overthink, over spreadsheet, over AI. You take a page out of the ultra wealthy, and when the intuition says this is the right thing to do, you don't delay. You pull the freaking trigger. That's the biggest difference between the people I've sold to and me and the rest of us.
That's something. I mean, that's something to kind of live by, is to trust your gut thinking, because that intuition is never wrong. And
You
I
listen,
might
when it comes to your intuition, always trust your intuition, never your runaway mind. Your runaway mind does that all the time, but your intuition never runs. It is always stationary. Trust the intuition, never the runaway mind.
how would you recommend people sharpen their intuition?
Well, you listen, no. You don't sharpen your intuition. It's a gift. There's nothing you have to sharpen. You have to become more willing and less apt to talk yourself out of a sound decision by way of Googling, spreadsheeting, AI, and whatever it is, asking for advice. That's what you got to sharpen. You've got to believe that the intuition to follow that date, you want to go on a date, or you want to start a business, or you want to go on a diet, or whatever it is, that's there for a reason. You got to drown out the periphery, and it's not even periphery, Demetri. It's the subconscious looking to protect ourselves, getting all the way back to fear being associated with a thought of taking a risk. That's what you got to work on. Your intuition is perfectly sharpened and honed. You've got to let it kind of percolate to the top and listen to it and follow it.
Oh, so like basically clear the interference, raise your vibration, and tune in.
Right on.
All right. And so I wanted to ask you, how to tell the audience how to go about living a life that truly rocks? Because you have a stable, or a relationship that's lasted decades, right? Where a lot of people, myself included, it didn't last. How to build that life that really rocks, where you're firing all cylinders.
Well, in my Aspire book, in the very first section, which is five chapters, I delineate the difference between motivation, inspiration, and aspiration. And there's a reason the book's called Aspire, not inspire, or not motivate. Motivation washes off and goes down the drain with the soap at night. That's why there's a multi-billion-dollar industry out there built around motivation, because we don't internally generate vitamin M. We don't internally generate motivation. We look outside for its source. So don't beat yourself up over the fact that you cannot stay motivated. I can't. I'm not a motivated person. You're not a motivated. Let me rephrase that. I don't stay motivated for long. Neither do you, because we're not wired that way. Okay, Frank, I feel better. What about inspiration? What's the difference? Inspiration comes when you've read a great book or you've watched a really inspiring movie, but like a bad sunburn, it dissipates after about 2 weeks. Motivation washes off and goes down the drain with a soap at night. If I've motivated you, I've failed you today. I have totally failed you. If I've inspired you, you'll feel it for a couple of weeks, and then it'll go away like a sunburn. Aspiration will allow you to create your own reality and alter your DNA. As part of learning what it is that you aspire to become, aspire to do, this otherworldly burning passion for your purpose, that's otherworldly burning passion to create something high and great is what aspiration is. In that same first 5 chapters, after I've identified the difference between motivation, inspiration, and aspiration, I asked you the question. There's only 2 chapters in all of 25 that are posed in the form of a question. What legacy do you aspire to leave behind? This is fun. So when I reference, the legacy I aspire to leave behind and who I aspired to emulate. I've aspired to 5 things in my life, Demetri. 5 things. 5 things. I've had a lot of motivation and inspiration, but only 5 otherworldly, high and mighty things that I aspired to. 1 is to be a best-selling author when I came out of high school with a 1.8 GPA. I've got 9 books in 7 genres. The 9th is coming out on February 29th in 2 days. I aspired to run this toughest foot race in the world when I learned about it, even though I was 1 step away from the couch as a couch potato. I aspired to be a real estate artist. Like, I can't sing, I can't sculpt, I can't play an instrument, but I can build 3-dimensional art. I aspire to run a charity in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, and I aspire to have a family. Now, those took 20 plus years, some of them, to come to fruition. They've all come to fruition. So to me, once I identified, this is how to live a life that rocks. Once I identified what I aspired to, author, real estate artist, this runner, family, and to take care of the poorest of the poor. And part of that, there's a whole section at the fifth section of Aspire, chapters 21 through 25. I'm sorry, the middle section is titled Love Life, like love life and your love life. After being married for 33 years, I felt I was qualified to give relationship advice because there's chapters in there that are titled How to Marry Your Guardian Angel. Relationship pressure creates the diamond, right? That's how diamonds are created, or crushes the union. The significance of a significant other. Many people I've met were really smart, very talented real estate investors, but they did involve their significant other to the point where they felt a part of it. And then they were forced to choose between the significant other and the thing they were really good at, let's say real estate. So having, if it's your desire, I married my guardian angel. I would be, if I hadn't married my wife, Nilsa, I would be, if I wasn't dead, I would be living in West Virginia in a trailer park with overalls on, smelling like motor oil, chewing tobacco, and I'd probably be married to the bearded lady in the circus. That's how much this guardian angel means to me that I've met. I mean, she helps me even against my own free will. Even if you're not into the marriage or whatever, having people that bring out that in you. If it wasn't for those people, you would be in that metaphorical trailer park smelling like motor oil. That's living a life that rocks. But it starts, Demetri, in that first section of Aspire, learning not what motivates you or inspires you, because you can use motivation and inspiration to ignite aspiration. Yes, indeed. But aspiration is like a Fabergé egg. It is like a jewel. It's sacred. So when I aspire to finish the toughest foot race in the world, use that as an example. Am I motivated every day to get up and train at 2 a.m.? No. Am I inspired to go out and train, 30 miles in the 100-degree heat? No. But I'll never lose the aspiration to finish the toughest foot race in the world. That's my example. That's the difference. So do yourself a favor. Start there. Start real simple, learning the difference between motivation, inspiration, and aspiration. What is it that you aspire to? Who is it you aspire to become? And most importantly, to help you get started, who is it that you aspire to emulate? Like sample little pieces of their DNA that will help you get there.
Wow. It's the ladder for success. And, I guess that leads to the other thing that I wanted to ask is how you go about training yourself to take these bigger risks. Because, people see these large projects and say, well, how do I grow to that? Right? Like what does that look like? And because there's such a gap there in the vision and the belief, people fail to take that starting action.
Okay, so that's where I'm just going to correct you. There's no gap.
Okay.
I was for the first 5 years of my career, I didn't do a house worth more than $100,000. If you've read Malcolm Gladwell's book Blink, he references to be an expert at anything in life, you got to put in 10,000 hours. 10,000 hours happens to be 5 years. I became an expert at the craft of real estate over those 5 years. My margins went from $7,000 a house to $25,000 a house. We're talking about a $100,000 house. I didn't do a house worth more than $100,000 for the first 5 years, and then I jumped to $2.2 million. Why? Because I had gained the confidence in that craft, not the business of, but the craft of real estate. I'd exercised that risk tolerance like a muscle. I had done hundreds of smaller transactions, and this was no difference. The only difference was 1 0. Like if I was paying $75,000 for a house and flipping it for $100,000, now I was paying $750,000 for a house and flipping it for $2 million. The difference is a zero. It's a freaking zero. That's how I saw it. I didn't see it. The biggest risk I ever took wasn't a $50 million house, Demetri, without a buyer. 22 bedrooms, 28 bathrooms, a 30-car garage on 3 acres of oceanfront property. Was not that house. You know what the biggest risk I ever took? Was leaving a $100,000 a year job as a tennis pro. So when I was in my early 20s, I was a tennis instructor. I was earning over $100,000 a year. It was my own business. I bought a Ferrari when I was 21 from teaching tennis. Stupid move, but anyway, I was materialistic. Bought this Ferrari. I think there's a picture in Aspire of that car. And that risk of leaving a $100,000 a year job, cash money. This is before the IRS existed, man. I didn't know anything about paying taxes. and going into this thing called real estate and buying crack houses that had used needles and used condoms and dirty mattresses and piles of feces in the corner, that was a crazy risk. But I took a lot of them, little ones. So how do you get to the big ones? You do a lot of little deals. I was very happy doing 100. I never even thought there was going to be a $2 million house. I was content until I realized I'm really good at the craft of real estate. I'd grown my margins to 25%. What's the difference? We sold everything. The Aspire book talks about, I turned to my wife and asked her, honey, we're ready. We sold all we had. We sold our house, we sold our cars, we moved it into an efficiency that was so small you could flip the eggs from the shower. We're talking a tiny little efficiency. You could reach out the shower and flip the eggs on the stove, or the pancakes. And we put it all into this one house on the ocean. But I didn't see it as a huge risk. I had earned my stripes. Like I had gained the confidence after doing hundreds of smaller deals that it was time to graduate to the first. There's no way in heck that I could go from a tennis pro to a $2 million spec house. But I could go from a tennis pro to a $50 million crack house. That was pretty easy.
Wow. So it's that magic of thinking big and just applying it. And, like you said, that zeros mindset. So thank you for that lesson, because I needed it as well. Because sometimes, these perceived limitations are, illusions.
You know what, though? If you think small, which I did. I thought small. I was really happy doing $100,000 houses. The big comes. The big will come. Don't put pressure on yourself. This whole scale up your business BS I hear all the time, forget it. Just make the size of your business what you've got right now, your crack houses, Frank, that you're flipping for $100,000. Make them the nicest little crack houses on the block. Sacrifice your bottom line to build your reputation. Your ROI, return on investment, will be significantly enhanced by your ROR, return on reputation. So I built my reputation. I sacrificed margin. I put 3 coats of paint on instead of 2. I put $20 yard carpet down instead of 10. I put a new roof on instead of patching the old. I put grass sod down instead of just seeding the front yard. I made my little crack houses nice, man. And they sold for 103% of retail. And I just took that approach when it was time, and I was comfortable to adding a zero to the acquisition and the selling price.
Wow. I mean, that attention to quality and detail is everything. And the discerning buyer notices that. Notices that the extra touch. Notice that you source the wood that's not commonly available, or like you said, that blue material from Italy that looks like the ocean, like that. It's a sanctuary because your home is your castle, right? And even though Jimi Hendrix said that all castles fall into the sea eventually, yours are very anchored well into the earth. So I'm very grateful for people like you, and like the vibrancy that you bring, and you're world class in more than one place. You talked about being world class and elite status. You're on par with David Goggins. You probably met him.
I raced against David Goggins 3 times at Badwater. Yes, one time.
Did you beat him?
I'll save you the long story. The short story is, one time neither one of us finished. One time he beat me, and one time I beat him.
Wow. Well, you know what? I mean, if you're going toe to toe with a Navy SEAL who's had that kind of story and just the power of persistence, right? Because you live it yourself. I just want to share infinite gratitude for the brilliance that you bring into the world, for the impact that you bring, for the books that you've written. And I'm going to start reading more about them, because I think, sometimes we harmonize well. Like I didn't know that, these things are possible. And when you change, your mentality about how you approach success, it's completely achievable. So thank you for being that inspiration to many people.
Well, Demetri, since this is when is this coming out again?
I could have it air in like 2 days, so it can be like the day before your leap day. We can talk about that. Promote it if you like.
I'll just go ahead and do it. This 9th, I'm going to call it a compilation, and I'll try to do this very succinctly because it's taken me a year to put this together. I went back to 1998 over all 8 of my prior books, including manuscripts that were rejected, original manuscripts that were edited. I went back, so that's 8 books and 20, what is that, 26 years ago. I went back 5 years on my social media. I don't just write and post pictures of my pancakes. Like, I really try to deliver some value, of aspirational value. I went back to all the media appearances I made. You know, I've been on Oprah a couple of times, ABC 2020, you name it, and I pulled out, and I went to my web pages. I pulled out the best of the best thoughts, quotes, ideas, and sound bites. I started with over 1,100 of them. Then me and a team of collaborators cut that down to 200. So keep that in mind. Okay, you got 260, the best of the best of what I have used. I've used a bunch of sound bites with you today, quotes. So that's the right-hand side of the page of the new book. On the left-hand side of the page, for the last 5 years, I have taken up photography, nature photography. And I'm not talking just sunrise and sunsets. These are evocative, provocative, creative. What in the world were you taking a picture of, Frank McKinney type of photos? Very, very, very different perspective through my lens, the lens of my mind and my actual camera. So the name of the new compilation is Aspirational Thoughts, Inspirational Images, an art gallery and teacher, a photography exhibit and mentor. And let me tell you how you use this. It's a little insight into the owner's manual, if you will. If I took you back to childhood when you first learned how to read, you had a tiny little hardback book, most of us, tiny little hardback book, a few pages in it, and on the left-hand page was a picture of a dog, and the right-hand page was a single word, dog. Next page, cat, cat. And your teacher or your parent told you to look at the cat, read the word. Look at the cat, read the word. That helped you learn and implement this new word as a young child that you just learned. The whole idea, and this is the right brain, left brain thing I referenced, the whole idea of aspirational thoughts and inspirational images is the left-hand page is a beautiful, evocative picture of nature. On the right-hand page are a handful, maybe 2 or 3 per page, of thoughts. Some are 4 words long, some are 4 sentences long. Thoughts, quotes, ideas, and sound bites. Sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. To live an extraordinary life, you must resist an ordinary approach. I've got 261 of those. If you liked one of them, if it really resonated with you, exercise your risk tolerance like a muscle. Eventually become stronger and able to withstand greater pressure. If you liked one of my quotes and you wanted to remember it, you look at the image on the left-hand side and it will help you remember, take action on, and implement that quote.
Wow.
No book like it out there. This is actually an oversized book. It's 8 1/4 by 11. It's smaller than a coffee table book. Just small enough so you could take it in the hot tub or on the plane or, up in the mountains. But the whole idea is to help you take some of the, like, Aspire is 111,000 words. There's a lot of superfluous buildup to the points in the chapters. I'm getting right to the points over the last 26 of my years of my life, including some that I just kind of came up with right before this book was published. To make it even more interesting, it's a 3-dimensional book. To add a 4th dimension to a 3-dimensional book, at the end of each chapter, there's a QR code. You scan that QR code, and you're taken to a private video page where I bring 2 or 3 of the images to life by way of backstory. Frank, what were you thinking when you took that picture? Frank, what was that a picture of? What exactly does this picture represent? I want the images to speak to you through me. So after you've done, and there's 10 meditative chapters too, Demetri, like action, breathe, risk, God, love, introspect, hope. So when you're in the hope chapter, you're going to see an image that relates to hope, and you're going to read quotes that relate to hope. And when you scan that QR code, you're going to hear some of the backstories, either historical perspective. Some of them are very humorous. There's one chapter that's laugh, it's hilarious. That will give you that will allow the images to come to life for you. So this new one, and when we're launching this thing, so we're launching it on Leap Day. It's available April 1st. You can available April 1st on Amazon. You can pre-order it from us before that. And there'll be you can just go to aspirationalthoughts.com. You can do it. Then we're hitting the road. 61 days, 52 cities, 33 states, over 10,000 miles on this book tour, delivering the message of hope to people in homeless shelters, soup kitchens, food pantries, detention centers, abused women's facilities, veterans facilities, treatment facilities. Because when you've lost everything, the last thing I want you to lose is hope. So I hope that in addition to Aspire and any of my other books that resonate with you, because I've written 7 different genres, so you can pick a genre that you like, that this new one, and this is, I can't imagine I could write anything better and simpler. Image, oh, that helps me retain that quote that I love from Frank. I'm going to go out and take action on it.
That's a beautiful anchoring. I mean, like how I learned Greek as a kid was my grandpa would send me magazines and comic books from Greece with cassette tapes. So connecting the story and the audible, and sometimes like putting those things together make it stick, because a lot of these books, as you said earlier, they overlap. But if you take the simple lesson and apply it and somehow strengthen it and root it, like it'll grow and bear fruit.
I, if you don't mind, I'm going to borrow the word you just said, anchoring. I love that. I have not used that, because that's exactly what happens. And for your viewers and listeners, go to aspirationalthoughts.com. You can read a couple sample chapters for free. You can see this very theatrical reveal that is going to take place, or took place, I guess, on Leap Day. And I have a big launch party where we're renting out a whole museum, because these photographs are museum quality. That's on April 24th. So if you want to come down to that party, I can only host 120 people. There's no cost. I'm asking for a voluntary donation to our Caring House. You decide how much you want to give. I don't care if it's $5, or I'll have a lot of people donating $5,000, because in Haiti, Demetri, I can build a whole house for a family of 8 who were living in a mud shack covered with palm fronds for a roof, dirt floors with rodents the size of cats running around, gnawing on the children's fingers and toes at night when they sleep. I can build a whole house for $4,800. Concrete house for a family of 8. So we didn't get into that today, but all of my books, all prior 8 books, and this being the 9th, all of my book sales, I make no money from my books. I made a lot of money in real estate. I make no money from my book sales. The book sales fund the work that the Caring House does in Haiti. One book. So if y'all go and buy one Aspirational Thoughts, Inspirational Images book, that provides about 100 meals in one of our orphanages in one of our villages in Haiti.
$1,000 to build a house.
Crazy.
I mean, and it's just, and how it will last and be very much appreciated and respected by the family that receives it. And then they can have a more secure future for your family.
You said it, because stability begins at home. And if you don't have a stable home, like a roof over your head, there is no stable future. That's why we build. Listen, I'm a philanthrocapitalist. I'm not in the charity business. A philanthrocapitalist, which is in the final section of the Aspire book, talks about how to be a philanthrocapitalist. You take the best of philanthropy, which is right here, the heart, and you get rid of the worst, which is charity. Charity exacerbates poverty, does nothing to solve the problem. You take the best of capitalism, which is cash, money, you get rid of the worst, which is greed. You marry the two, the heart with the money, and you can provide a self-sustaining existence in the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere, like we've done in Haiti. We are not in the charity business. All of our villages contain the following. On average, 50 houses, a community center, a school, church, clinic, some form of renewable food, clean drinking water, and free enterprise, like an animal husbandry or a nursery or a fishing cooperative or sewing machines, so the village can be self-sustaining. Demetri, we're on our 31st village now. We're 30 for 30, meaning never once in the 21-year history of Caring House Project has any of the villagers or their elders come back to us for more money. There's 2 reasons. One is I tell them up front, and our board of directors does, we provide the elements I just referenced, the houses, the schools, clinics, water, all that. We provide all that, and then we're on to the next. It's up to you to make that thing self-sustaining. Don't call me for more money. because we're on to the next one. And once I realized we were 10 for 10 and then 20 for 20, now 30 for 30, I don't even care. I get a call in the 31st Village. I ain't helping. I mean, that's somebody else. You bail them out. Somebody else who's in the charity business, bail them out. I'm in the philanthro-capitalistic business. And that is what can solve poverty.
That's where I want to be. I mean, that's compassionate capitalism, word, deed, and action.
But when you say, and everybody listening maybe feels the same, like, oh, that's easy for Frank to say, he's got money. No, well, yes, I do, but I didn't always. So you have, the Bible references the 3 T's, time, talent, and treasure. Before you have the treasure, before you even have the talent, you have the time to go volunteer 1 hour a week at a soup kitchen. Try it. It doesn't cost you a thing. You'll start to exercise your spiritual highest calling. You'll start to understand maybe that's where it is. Maybe it's not a homeless a soup kitchen. Maybe it's going to a hospital and volunteering at a children's ward, or go whatever your strength is. I was in the housing business, Demetri, so I'm going to provide housing to people who don't have it. I mean, it's that simple. But you've got to start somewhere. And when you say, that's where I want to be, well, I wasn't there, but my mentor sure was, and he said, Frank, just go volunteer at a soup kitchen, man. Just get your feet wet. That'll help get out of your funk, because this is what I was in. That's when I was depressive and like suicidal. And it worked. Like, it helped open my eyes to this concept of a spiritual highest calling. In the Bible, there's a passage from the Gospel of Luke. And again, if you're not into the Bible and you're not religious, please don't shut the podcast off. Just think of this as a great life mantra, okay? Just forget the Bible for a minute. It's a great life mantra. If you are Christian into the Bible, it's a Bible passage. Luke 12:48 says, to whom much is entrusted, much is required. To whom much is given, much is expected. If I didn't tell you that was from the Bible, wouldn't you think that was a great life mantra? To whom much is given, much is expected. To whom much is entrusted, much is required. So for me, knowing that I was a 1.8 GPA and in juvenile detention 7 times, 8 times, whatever it was, I knew that I had been blessed, and I needed to share those blessings with those less fortunate. I didn't know that right away. Remember, I said I was going to jump off a cliff because I was materialistic, consumeristic, egotistic. But when I realized that God blesses us materially for a reason other merely than just our own personal comfort, I mean, the light bulb went off. I can only eat so much food. I can only wear so many clothes. I can only drive so many cars. In my mentor's case, he can only fly so many planes and own so many sports teams. Right? There's a limit to how much we can consume. Above that, it's incumbent upon us to be responsible stewards for the blessings we have been given. And that's what it took, a hard banging on the head, side of the head with a baseball bat, for me to learn. But I have never looked back. If you're having trouble with any of that, one more time, great life mantra if you're a non-Bible person, great Bible passage if you're a Bible person. Hebrews 11:1 says, faith is being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you do not see. Doesn't need to come out of the Bible, does it? So true. Have faith in what you hope for, whatever that may be, and be certain of what you do not see before you today. It'll manifest.
It's belief. It's all in belief and faith, and it strengthens us in those low moments of life. So as long as we keep those things true and renew ourselves in the Word, because I the more I read, the more I like sometimes a random page and it's like, oh, this is the page I need. and it comes to me and you feel inspiration and know that you're not alone in any of your struggles in life.
For those of you who are not, I take it you're a Christian then.
I am a Christian.
Okay, so probably a bunch of listeners are.
Speak to faith. It's okay.
But it's easy to evangelize to those who are Christian. I'm not even an evangelist. You know what I am? I want to be Jesus. If he were here in 2024, not with a robe and sandals and like a rope tied around his waist, with purple hair, driving a Yugo, wearing ripped up jeans, like what would he do today? What would he do today? And not back then. It's dogma that screws people up, right? Forget all the dogma. If you be sure to show hospitality to strangers, For by doing so, some have shown hospitality to angels without knowing it. That's another life mantra for you non-believers. And for those, like I have, and I'm not knocking my sisters. I got 4 sisters. They're extremely intellectual, like Stanford and Notre Dame, and none of them are believers, even though they were brought up that way. How can you believe in something you can't see, right? Getting back to faith. A great analogy is that means you didn't believe in the law of gravity until Newton discovered it? Well, wasn't the law of gravity always there? Yes, it was. It didn't take the discovery of gravity to prove that it existed. It's the same thing with faith. It's there, regardless of somebody discovering that it's true or not. Law of gravity was around for billions of years before Sir Isaac Newton discovered it 150, 200 years ago, whatever it was. So that's how I see it. Faith is being sure of what you hope for and certain of what you don't see, even if it's gravity.
Oh yeah, I mean, Christianity existed before the Bible, right? It was the apostles spreading the faith to the disciples, and preaching the gospel, even if it was at the cost of their death, because they believed in everlasting life. And you exhibit a lot of principles of the ultimate servant leader, which is all that the Lord worried about in the next life was taking these lessons of love, virtue, and compassion, right? And I think that's a beautiful testament, because as a lot of people kind of chase figures, right? 6 figures, 7 figures, all these numbers, right? And more stuff. And like you said, the chase by itself is an empty pursuit. It needs to be a means to a greater end.
Amen.
Well, Frank, thank you so much for your time today. Any parting lessons or things to look out for? Because we'd love to promote any new projects or books that you have coming out soon.
It's impossible really for me to reference all 8 of my books, or now 9. What I would suggest, and I don't know if you have show notes that you'll put,
we'll wrap in the show notes.
Frank-McKinney.com. So it's my first name with a hyphen, McKinney.com. That will take you to a web page that's been called Disney on a Desktop by PC Magazine. Why? Of course, you can read about all the 9 books I've written, free chapters, free Audible chapters. You can take tours of the mansions that I've built on the ocean. You can read my blog. You can go to Haiti and see all the villages we've built there. I've got them all on a map. So for $4.75, you donate, we can buy a chicken. For $300,000, we can do a whole village. Don't tell me you can't afford it. I don't need your hammers or nails or tool belts. I don't need your hands to help me. Frank, I'd love to go to Haiti with you sometime. No. Well, maybe you would, but I take you to Haiti to volunteer. I just took a job away from somebody in a country where the rural areas have an 80% unemployment rate. We never take volunteers. We take your money. We go over there, and for $4.75, you give up a Starbucks for the day, and I can buy a chicken for a family who will eat the eggs until the chicken no longer bears eggs, and then we'll eat the chicken. Spend some time on the Disney on a Desktop at frank-mckinney.com. Tour around. And of course, if one of the books moves you, know that almost every one of them that you're going to buy is going to provide close to 100 meals in one of our orphanages.
Wow. I mean, it's a beautiful aspiration, is to transform a place that's, I think, was the poorest country in Western Hemisphere, and raise their standards of living as best you can. And
when you do that, Demetri, and for those of you who want to even start by going to the soup kitchen 1 hour a night, it's not about feeling better about yourself. People ask me, don't you feel so good that you provided 14,000 kids who are eating dirt, who are now eating 2-part protein, 1-part carbohydrate meals? I don't feel good. I don't feel bad. I feel gratitude for being a responsible steward for the blessings God's given me. It was about 5 years ago that I replaced pride with gratitude. Aren't you proud of what you've done, Frank? I am not proud of a single thing. Nothing am I proud of. I'm grateful that I was a responsible steward to use the blessings, either professional or spiritual, that God had given me. That was a quantum leap for me, to go from being proud of this real estate rock star, best-selling author, ultra marathoner. No, I'm grateful that I got the I was given the opportunity to be aware enough, to take advantage of the professional spiritual callings that God gave me.
Wow. And if you're steward with God's resources in the right way, you are to be rewarded with more.
That's what happens when you're responsible steward with a small territory. Guess what happens to the larger territory?
It enlarges, and
It enlarges.
yeah,
It enlarges.
wow. I mean,
Now, it doesn't. Listen, it doesn't come without challenges, and the challenges is a great metaphor, great visual. So if you're not taking full advantage of the gifts God's given you, your life will have very few what I call minefields. Minefields, like used in a battle. They would hide the explosives underneath the ground, and the soldier would step on them and get blown to bits. The more successful you are by way of using the blessings God's given you, the more concentrated that minefield becomes. The more careful you have to be where you step, because the evil one, the devil, covets those closest to God. I can't tell you how many times I have had to tiptoe around mines that have been placed before me, especially when I go over to Haiti. Devil does not like me over in Haiti. I've come back very sick before. I've come back having to have I had to have a deliverance once, like a exorcism once, because I had so much like this evil overcoming me. So yes, God always answers your prayers, and he may even answer them to exceed your expectations, but be careful of the minefields that lay ahead once you've had those prayers answered.
Wow. I mean, the battles that we fight in life are not just financial, but spiritual. And, you're a strong warrior in God's army, because Haiti is like the seat of voodoo. And, they pray to dark forces to somehow find temporary relief in whatever situation they're in. But the answer is, following God's teachings and principles. And
Haiti, as they say, the joke is Haiti is 90% Catholic, 100% voodoo. And so when you're over there, you can tell the difference. You go by a building that has a proper image of, let's say, Christ or his disciples or the Virgin Mary, and then the next building over, just a little bastardization on Christ's face and a little change on, that's the voodoo side. Well, you wouldn't know unless you were told that's what it is. And I remember once I was in Haiti, and I was told we were spending the night in one of our villages. For the very brave at heart, for those who donated a little bit more money to go, we actually slept in one of the villages. And in the morning, which we didn't really sleep, we just laid on this dusty concrete floor all night. And there was like a dozen of us that went. And in the morning, there was this building where voodoo ceremony took place. And I woke up, and I was warned by our guards. We were, people with machine guns were watching over us. And I was warned, don't open that. And I was curious. I'm always curious, seek forgiveness, not permission. I opened the door, and I felt this evil come over me. And that was the time I had to come back to the United States and have an exorcism done, because I opened the door to this evil voodoo ceremony building, and it just washed over me. I didn't perform any evil act, but I felt, what happened? The evil one, basically, I came back to Florida, and I saw these starving children in Haiti, not in our village, but you drive away, you can see them all the way to the airport. I couldn't go to a restaurant and have a hamburger. I basically was feeling guilty about anything and everything associated with the comfortable lifestyle that I had. I was eating tuna out of a can. I was like, honey, we can't spend money on this. And I realized, oh my God, the devil got me over there. He's making me feel guilty. Be careful not to weaken the strong while strengthening the weak, right? And this was what happened to me. I was becoming weak because I opened up one of the doors to one of those voodoo things. So it's real. I don't doubt it. No matter how strong you are for God, if you're not careful, the devil will find a way in.
Oh no, I believe it. I see it. I've lived it, and it's like the devil's at the door. Don't open it. But sometimes you open the wrong door and it comes in. But at least we have a channel to process these things and overcome and outlast all the temporaries in our life.
So let's end on a high note.
Sure.
Aspirationalthoughts.com. Pick up a copy of that compilation. You're going to love the photography. You're going to love the aspirational quotes. And Demetri, I want to thank you for asking questions. I've been on, oh my God, I can't tell you how many interviews and podcasts. I've never really got to toggle between the faith side, the business side, the entrepreneurial side, and the mindset side. I mean, we got to touch it all today. So you're an amazing host.
I'm very grateful, and that really means a lot coming from you. You're more than welcome to come back anytime, and we can talk about how you put Del Rey on the map, because that's one of my that is my favorite town in Florida. That's where
No,
I get my acupuncture there. Actually find my Zen there at a place called Zen Acupuncture. I
yeah,
love the beach. I don't own a home there yet, but I think if I were to buy that, that is where I'm going to buy.
great. Well, when you come, if I happen to be in Florida, I'm in North Carolina a lot more now, but we still have a
Okay.
little presence in Florida. We'll get together and go to church or something.
I look forward to that. Well, many praises for you, Frank, and thanks again for being on the Relief Podcast.
Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.